Handcuffs on a reality star. Elizabeth frozen at the door, watching officers take Andrei away, her husband, the supposed family protector, now just the latest scandal headline. The silence in their upscale Florida kitchen felt louder than anything else, drowning out even the shouts of the police. This wasn't just a bad fight or another over-the-top 90-day blow-up. This was the moment everything collapsed for good. One marriage, 8 years, 2 kids, and a home full of memories flipped upside down in seconds as Andrei disappeared into that squad car, face drained of all that trademark bravado. No more camera crew to cut away for a commercial break, no script to stick to. That was the moment Elizabeth's world split in two. What nobody saw coming was how fast this life of bigger-than-life TV drama would splinter into actual courtroom drama. Viewers have seen Andrei poke, prod, and bulldoze through family arguments for years, always insisting he was the glue holding his household together. Yet behind the scenes, he was piling up gut-wrenching secrets, building a house of cards on shaky foundations that would eventually crush the very family he claimed to protect. The first domino? Not the arrest, not the divorce papers, something much smaller. One missing stack of cash. An account that didn't seem right. A late-night fight that felt more desperate than angry, a worried look on Elizabeth's face when no one else was watching. But she had no idea her husband was spiraling, chasing down luck at hour after hour on online gambling sites while she slept, or that every bet was eating away not only their savings, but the trust that held it all together. And when the police showed up, the emails, the secret accounts, the missing money, the mountain of debt, every single detail came crashing out in public. The mugshot spread across every fan page. The hashtags started trending. Even the cast was blindsided. And inside the silence of that empty house, Elizabeth had to decide if she had a future with a man who had a second life in plain sight. She thought she had been fighting for her marriage. Now she realized she might be the only person fighting at all. The shockwaves hadn't even finished rippling before fans started asking, was Andrei always hiding behind that macho pride, or did the TV circus finally swallow him whole? As Elizabeth reached for her phone to call her lawyer and finally cut him out, one question burned through every corner of social media. How much betrayal does it take to end a love story built for millions to watch? Before the police lights and viral meltdown, Andrei and Elizabeth were reality TV's ultimate, will they won't they magnet couple. Their story on 90 Day Fiancé flickered between fairy tale and family war zone, but nobody was flipping the channel. When Andrei first showed up from Moldova, the spark was obvious, so was the tension. His accent, swagger, and total disregard for awkward silences crashed right into Libby's big, messy American circle, a family more outspoken than a 3-hour reunion episode. Everyone remembers those early scenes. Andrei clashing with Elizabeth's sisters, the infamous dad Chuck side-eyeing every word, Libby pushing back and then melting when Andrei played the strong, protective type. Those honeymoon clips from Moldova looked like something from an entirely different marriage. Intense, stubborn romance against a backdrop of old churches and tighter budgets. Each argument, each tear, every overcooked family barbecue, it was messy, raw, but all got spun for fun by TLC cameras. You knew every Christmas dinner meant at least one new grudge, maybe a drink thrown, and always a cold standoff across the table. Andrei, larger than life, wore independence as his identity. No help, no handouts, always pushing the image of the self-made provider. This became his on-screen performance, the tough guy who never backs down and never apologizes, not to anyone. Elizabeth, all heart and hustle, would rally for him in fights with her family, even when her own doubts flickered. Liver smiling in confessionals, joking on Instagram, always putting up that "we made it" front with matching outfits and flawless photos. It was reality TV magic. Drama, chaos, resolution, repeat. But you could see the cracks if you paid attention. Whenever cameras panned out after those big brawls, you noticed the quiet gaps. Those lingering shots on Andrei's unchanging expression, Liz darting worried glances, the sudden topic changes when money, or real life, came up. Everything looked perfect until you asked about the next step, the financial plan, the missing pay stub. Then all you got was a quick laugh, a brush off, or an inside joke nobody else understood. Each new season amped up the stakes. Marriage, baby, balancing in-laws and cultures, every plot twist delivered a new test. Fans split into camps, Team Andrei loving the tough love approach, Team Elizabeth praying she'd finally stand her ground. Social media lived for it. But between the episodes, things started to shift. On camera, Andrei celebrated fresh career ideas and big moves. In private, the dream jobs fizzled, business ambitions got blurry, and cracks started showing up in their social feeds. That grin got tighter. Captions talked about the grind a little more often, and nights out shrank as childcare and bills multiplied. The couple dialed down the flash, amped up the hustle, and the tension quietly simmered beneath all that posted perfection. Viewers never saw the little details that hinted at unraveling. There were birthday parties with a little less sparkle. Elizabeth posting old throwback photos instead of new adventures. Andrei snapping back at comments about money. A few sharp words about outsiders judging what they can't understand. Elizabeth's family, masters of passive-aggressive group texting, picked at every bruise, never fully letting Andrei live down his outsider status or the years of clashing values. At home, private walls went up. Andrei spent more nights staring at screens, less time joking with his daughter. Conversations dropped to whispers after the cameras stopped. Plans for their family business slowed, and the smart remarks about financial independence grew sharper, more defensive, sometimes tinged with worry that didn't quite fit the public script. People online started to wonder, was the fairy tale really fading, or was this just another TV plot setting up next year's drama? Fans argued over every change. Was it stress, exhaustion, something bigger nobody on camera dared say out loud? That's when the little signs clicked into place. The energy shifted in ways you could feel even through the screen. Money complaints, short tempers, dodged questions, and Alex's stony silences at family dinners. By the time the next calendar page turned, the distance wasn't just emotional, it was inches on the couch at home, and you could sense the storm rolling closer, frame by frame. For a while, Elizabeth kept telling herself things would work out. She'd been through Andrei's mood swings before, always chalking them up to culture shock or another squabble with her sisters. But something felt different this time. He was less present, locked away on his phone, nodding through toddler chatter, but with that faraway look that always meant he was somewhere else entirely. At first, she thought maybe it was stress from the mounting bills, maybe the pressure of trying to be the perfect Instagram dad while their checking account started to look like a ransacked piggy bank. But nothing she tried, no pep talk, no evening glass of wine, no vacation day, could break him out of his funk. She could feel the distance growing, pressing in on every conversation, filling the silence with suspicion even before she dared to look for proof. And still, nobody could have predicted the scale of the secret hiding in plain sight. Credit card statements started arriving in thicker envelopes. Elizabeth found herself triple-checking online balances late at night, telling herself she was only being proactive. But her gut churned every time she scrolled through the list. Too many odd charges from overseas betting sites, withdrawals she couldn't trace back to any plan they'd made, money vanishing in trickles, and then in sudden shocks. That's when the arguments started turning ugly. She'd ask him straight up, trying to push past the wall of excuses, but Andrei would only double down. Defensive, irritated, swearing he had everything under control, he accused her of not believing in him. Their marriage once thrived on mutual stubbornness, but suddenly that same trait felt less like a bond and more like a battlefield. He fought to hold on to his image of the provider, maybe because letting it slip would mean admitting defeat, not just to his family or the fans, but to himself. So he worked even harder to cover his tracks, changing passwords, rerouting bank statements, spending more and more time in the quiet corners of the house with only the blue glow of a laptop for company. Friends who dropped by said Andrei wasn't himself, quieter and quicker to anger if anyone teased him about money or responsibility. Playing it cool, he told everyone business was about to turn around, but Elizabeth's father wasn't convinced. Chuck had seen too many promises and too few results. At every family dinner, the tension grew, everybody pretending not to notice the unhappiness oozing between the cracks. The next time anyone would get an honest answer, it would be too late. Rumors started swirling in their small community. An investment gone wrong, some risky partnership that gobbled up their savings. One night, Elizabeth found herself counting every dollar, her fingers shaking as she realized how deep the hole had gotten. At first, it was just a denial-fueled hope that one lucky break would fix everything. But when Andrei started staying up all night, the glow of gambling websites flickering across his determined face, Elizabeth realized she was competing with something she could never match, not a woman, but the rush of a chance to win it all back in a blink. Every win got masked with bigger losses. Every small gain poured right back into the void. The more she tried to reach him, the more he pushed her away, insisting he could fix this, refusing any offer to ask for family help or even talk to a financial advisor. The night she saw the stack of final notice letters hidden in his bag, the last of her excuses crumbled. The numbers were worse than she ever imagined, debts that added up to more than she'd ever seen pass through any of their accounts. She wanted to scream, but no words came out. Shock turned into a hollow numbness. Every memory of their first years together, every fight she'd defended him in, now felt like a puzzle she'd been putting together with half the pieces missing. Yet, what was coming would dwarf everything they'd already faced. What Andrei never seemed to understand was that secrets grow in the dark, and his need to keep control only made the fallout bigger. He began juggling debts to pay other debts, hiding the incoming calls from unknown numbers, ducking out to make quick runs that took longer and longer. The tension at home became suffocating. Elizabeth's family sensed a shift, but every time they reached out, Andrei snapped, telling them to keep out of his business. The kids picked up on the stress too, tiptoeing through rooms as if afraid to bump into the wrong mood at the wrong time. Friends withdrew, sensing the cold front that had crept into every corner of their lives. Each day, Elizabeth waited for the final straw, the moment she'd find the line he'd crossed that she couldn't walk back. But even she didn't expect the knock at their door to come with law enforcement, not a friendly neighbor or someone from the network. In that instant, as officers read out the arrest warrant, the world she'd been fighting to hold together crashed down. Every accusation, every excuse, every moment of stubborn hope collapsed under the weight of proof. Andrei wasn't just in over his head, he was gone, his fall mapped out in every dingy statement and secret account. That's when fans everywhere realized the real episode had only just begun. Nobody watching could turn away now, because the next act wasn't scripted, it was real, raw, and there was no going back. The news didn't just break online, it exploded. As soon as Andrei's mugshot started circling, it was like every 90-day group chat in America caught fire at the same second. Screenshots hit Instagram with thousands of new comments in minutes. You could practically feel the group DMs lighting up, friends sending each other the same viral stories back and forth, all with the same shock and disbelief. Nobody wanted to believe the tough guy from Moldova, the one who made entire family dinners go silent with a look, was now at the center of a financial scandal straight out of a true crime podcast. On Reddit, the main 90-day Fiancé thread went from playful memes to nuclear meltdown. Loyal viewers who had spent years defending Andrei's blunt style had nothing left to say. All the posts asking if maybe it was all a misunderstanding got buried under waves of memes, clown emojis, and side-by-side comparisons of his toughest TV moments with his new mugshot. If you scrolled long enough, you'd see a few diehard fans still trying to make sense of it, arguing that everybody struggles, blaming the pressure of TV and social media. But every time someone tried to change the subject, another screenshot of court documents would appear, with receipts so clear even the doubters had to admit it was bad. You could almost hear the sound of group chats switching from shock to full-on roast mode. Influencers wasted no time. Reaction videos hit YouTube within hours, some creators breaking down the arrest in real time, pausing their clips to cover their mouths, lose their minds, and point out every single red flag fans had missed for years. You know the type, 1 second they're sympathetic, the next they're counting down the biggest I told you so moments from old episodes. In livestream comment sections, people picked sides, some slamming Elizabeth for not seeing it, others blaming Andrei for dragging everyone down, even a handful asking if TLC would spin this into a new special. The memes were savage. That screenshot of Andrei's stone-cold mugshot replaced his old smiling cast photo on more accounts than you could count. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, each platform had its own version of the chaos, with rival fan pages making case files out of every blurry frame, every old argument, every accidental slip on camera. No matter where you looked, the internet was united for once. Nobody was neutral. Elizabeth's own socials flooded with everything from sending love to brutal takes begging her to leave him for good. Within days, she wiped his last name from her accounts, replaced old highlight reels with photos of her and the kids, and quietly unfollowed almost half the franchise cast. Followers noticed right away. Within hours, whole threads popped up analyzing every deleted Instagram story, every change in bio, like internet detectives combing for hidden clues. You've seen those comments, right? Some people treating it like the end of an era, others celebrating her, finding strength, as if she wasn't also scrolling through the hate with a lump in her throat. Andrei's last few posts turned into museum exhibits for the keyboard police, rows of comments laughing, crying, threatening legal advice, or dropping links to TMZ-style breakdowns of what went wrong. Even ex-cast members jumped into the pile. Older couples that Andrei had dismissed as soft were suddenly calling out his arrogance. Some posts were petty, others almost compassionate, but everyone wanted their say. There were old co-stars defending Elizabeth, stories about being warned long ago, plenty of "we always knew this would catch up with him" takes. When word got around that TLC dropped the couple from future specials, even the most loyal 90-Day fans had to admit it. There wasn't coming back from this in reality TV land. But the wildest debates spun up not about Andrei or Elizabeth specifically, but about marriage, secrets, and pride. Some fans said this is what happens when one person runs the show and acts like they never make mistakes. Others claimed the pressure of reality TV breaks people in ways nobody can understand unless your biggest argument is getting jiffed 1,000 times. Questions flew. Would you forgive this level of betrayal? If you were in Elizabeth's shoes, would you stick it out for the kids, or leave without looking back? Some even blamed the network, arguing that years of chaos and forced storylines pushed their relationship right off the edge. The story became something bigger than one couple. It turned into a full-on referendum on truth, second chances, and the cost of pretending everything is fine for the sake of appearances. If you've ever seen a fandom split in real time, you know how ugly and addictive it gets. People made teams, picked apart Liz's every decision, debated Andrei's worst moments, then compared it all to other franchise disasters like it was a twisted reality show Olympics. Nobody was waiting for a reunion episode this time. The drama was out in the world, and every new comment kept the flames going. Think about how people move on after something so public and so personal falls apart online. Who gets the sympathy? Who gets the blame? That's what still keeps the comment sections boiling, and why people who claimed they'd never watch the show again are still tuning in, desperate to know what on earth comes next. Did Elizabeth do the right thing, or did she owe it to her vows to stick it out? Was Andrei always this reckless, or was this the world's harshest reality check? The debates aren't dying. They're evolving, and every viewer, whether they admit it or not, is picking a side and waiting for the next piece of the story to drop. The courtroom felt colder than any reality reunion stage, stripped of filters and dramatic edits. The judge's voice was steady, but carried a weight that made every gasp, every shuffling chair, sound like an echo. Andrei stood there, hands at his sides, knowing there was no family member left to shout a defense, no clever comeback for the camera, no audience vote to sway the final outcome. Elizabeth sat farther away than she'd ever been, not a tear left for sympathy, only exhaustion. This wasn't a battle between in-laws or a scripted family war. It was the final tally of every choice made in secret, every line crossed that couldn't be erased with a social media apology. As the evidence was read out, account numbers, forged signatures, late-night withdrawals, all the lies stacked one after another, it became impossible to look away. Even the most loyal Andrei defenders in the room had nothing to say. His face, usually so defiant, now just looked shell-shocked, caught somewhere between anger at being caught and disbelief that his years of control had slipped so quickly away. Each argument he'd used with Elizabeth to silence her, every time he said he had a plan, got measured out as proof against him. In the end, the judge delivered a sentence almost clinical in its clarity: 5 months behind bars, plus restitution for debts so massive it was hard to even speak the number out loud. For Andrei, the punishment was more than the jail cell. Losing control, the very thing he'd twisted himself into knots to protect, stripped away every layer of pride he'd built. He had gone from reigning over family dinner tables to counting hours with strangers, his dreams of providing replaced by the blank monotony of booking numbers and steel. There were no second takes in jail, no image to maintain except staying out of trouble until release. Time dragged, rumors spilled through concrete walls, and every letter from the outside world reminded him just how much he'd lost. The tough guy rep, once his greatest armor, carried no weight among people who'd seen it all before. For Elizabeth, walking out of the courthouse meant stepping into a new version of her life no producer could spin. She filed for divorce not in a fit of rage, but in a quiet act of protection. She'd spent years fighting beside Andrei, covering for his temper, shielding the kids from family chaos, smoothing things over behind closed doors. Now that same strength turned in a new direction. Each document she signed became a promise, not only to herself, but to her children, that they wouldn't have to rebuild on secrets anymore. She moved quickly, securing her accounts, changing passwords, taking the steps lawyers recite every day for families picking up the pieces from financial disaster. The ripple effect ran deep. Her family, once so judgmental and controlling, closed ranks, working to help her stay afloat. Old arguments seemed trivial in the face of lost trust and looming debt collectors. Even the kids, still too young to understand the legal details, felt the change in their home. Vacations were put on hold, routines tightened, but for the first time in months, the tension wasn't thick enough to choke. Elizabeth learned, painfully, that time could pass without waiting for a crisis or waiting for someone else to fix everything. Regret ran through every day, a kind that doesn't fade with time, only shifts shape. She replayed arguments, tried to trace the moment when hope for Andrei's change finally gave out. The pain was personal, raw, but brought a sharper clarity than any TV showdown. She was no longer another cast member in a rolling family brawl. Now her focus turned to stability. The rebuilding was slow and uneven. Unexpected hugs from her kids, friends dropping off groceries, family group chats that felt like actual support instead of sabotage. For the first time, Elizabeth allowed herself to map out a future that didn't revolve around saving someone else's pride, a future that might finally belong to her and her children alone. Thinking back on everything, she sometimes wondered if things could have ended differently. All those years, all that public pressure, maybe nobody could have survived it without making some desperate choices. But the truth hit hard. Every small compromise made along the way, every time she swallowed her doubts, brought them closer to that final break. Now, whatever pain she carried, she also held the freedom to start again, her story forever changed, but no longer out of her hands. The past might always haunt their home, but it wouldn't dictate what came next. In the end, the hardest split became her clearest step forward. When the headlines started to fade and the comment threads finally slowed, what was left behind wasn't something you can sum up in tabloid shock or angry social media rants. It was the silence that lingers after a storm, an awkward stillness in the house where so many arguments, celebrations, and heart-to-hearts once played out for everyone to see. The show moved on to new couples and new scandals, but the loss for Elizabeth and her kids didn't clean up so neatly. Their home, once crammed with noise and cameras and nervous energy, felt bigger and emptier all at once. There was no hiding from the gaps left by trust that couldn't be rebuilt. Not now. Not after the world saw every private mistake spelled out in court records and divorce filings. The debt collectors didn't care about TV ratings or fan theories. The reality of paperwork and late payments didn't skip a beat just because the headline drama made people pick sides online. Elizabeth spent her mornings sorting mail and reading emails with her jaw clenched, pretending for the sake of her children that things were getting easier, when some days it took everything she had not to break down again. Out in public, she put on her strongest face, determined to keep her kids' lives as steady as possible. At night, she wondered what could have saved them. Forgiveness? More honesty? Fewer secrets? Or would any choice have only delayed the disaster she now had to clean up? The old family feuds faded fast, replaced by a resilience that comes only when everyone sees what's really at stake. Elizabeth's siblings, never shy about speaking their minds, checked in more often. Even Chuck, her dad, who had spent years casting doubt on Andrei's plans, never once said "I told you so." He knew that the real damage couldn't be measured in dollars or whose side was right. The show's fans, always ready with opinions, found themselves split between sympathy and frustration, some furious about the fallout, others still searching old episodes for clues they might have missed, as if spotting a warning sign after the fact could fix any of it. When your life's been projected on screen for nearly a decade, it's easy to forget where the character ends and the real person begins. Elizabeth had to reclaim that line all over again. She learned by living through it. Betrayal isn't always loud, and pride can swallow help before anyone's even offered. Recovery is slower, messier, and demands more grace than reruns ever showed. Still, for all the pain, a new kind of hope crept in at the edges. She started sharing honest moments with followers, a messy living room, a genuine laugh, bedtime with the kids. The polished curtain fell away, and in its place was something more lasting, small wins, gradual trust rebuilt week by week, a willingness to live without secrets. Her circle shrank, but it grew stronger. The debt was still there, but so was the chance to protect her family's future, inch by inch, day by day. For every fan wondering if a person can ever come back after a fall like this, the answer wasn't easy. Shame doesn't leave overnight, and love doesn't always mean a second chance. But watching Elizabeth move forward, you start to see something quietly powerful, not a comeback, but a determination to start a better chapter, even if the whole world's still watching. Andrei's story, once a highlight reel of brute confidence and quick tempers, now sits as a warning in the 90-day archive. The biggest takeaway wasn't the viral arrest or the ugly split, but how fast everything can change when truth, trust, and money crash together behind closed doors. As the cameras pack up and attention moves on, you start to realize the end of one saga is the opening scene for another. The franchise always finds fresh heartbreaks and new drama, but for now, all eyes are on the next couple teetering at the edge of their own make-or-break secret. And if you think this is shocking, you haven't seen what's just leaked about another fan favorite. Wait until you see what explodes next.